Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a really fascinating intersection of ideas. We're going to look at how ancient cultural and religious philosophies, principles that have literally been around for centuries, can actually be used to evaluate modern city planning. It's a totally different way to look at the concrete, the roads, and the buildings that we interact with every single day.
To give us a clear roadmap, we're going to hit four main areas today. First, Islamic urban planning philosophy. Second, Sharia objectives in planning. Third, we'll look at New Minya as a case study. And finally, an environmental evaluation.
So let's jump right into our foundational source for today. It's this fantastic academic text called Urbanism, Authenticity, and Contemporaneity by Dr. Ahmed Mansour al-Muslimi. What makes this so compelling is how it bridges the gap between traditional Islamic legal principles and contemporary urban design. It basically asks, can rules formulated centuries ago still dictate how we build a functional modern city today? And the author argues, absolutely, yes, they can.
Section 1. Islamic Urban Planning Philosophy. Let's look at the fundamental rules that historically guided how a space should serve its people. The absolute crucial point here is the central legal rule. Warding off harm takes precedence over bringing benefits. Think about what that actually means for a second. In urban planning, it dictates that protecting residents from negative impacts is always prioritized over adding new, potentially superficial benefits. Say a new highway brings the benefit of faster travel, right? But it causes extreme noise pollution and divides the community. Well, under this philosophy, you don't build that highway. Protecting the community is the absolute baseline requirement before any modern upgrades can even be considered.
Section 2. Sharia objectives in planning. Now, if our main goal is warding off harm, we have to ask ourselves, what exactly are we trying to protect?
Well, the author identifies three primary objectives, known as the Maqasid al-Sharia, that apply directly to urbanism. We've got preserving religion, preserving life for the soul, and preserving wealth. These aren't just abstract theological concepts, you know? In this framework, they act as the ultimate overarching goals that a city's physical space must safeguard. If a city's layout harms people's health, it fails to preserve life. If it prevents community gathering, it fails to preserve religion.
To figure out if a city actually achieves these lofty goals, Dr. al-Muslimi breaks the city down into three observable entities: the environmental, the social, and the economic. It's a brilliant move because it gives planners a really tangible checklist to evaluate any urban space. Moving into Section 3, New Minnow, a case study. Theory is great and all, but we really need to see this applied in the real world.
The author introduces the city of New Minya in Egypt as the ultimate testing ground for this. Since it's a newer, planned city, it's honestly the perfect candidate to see if modern master plans actually align with these deeply rooted cultural principles.
And that brings us to Section 4, Environmental Evaluation. For the rest of this explainer, we're going to focus specifically on evaluating the ecology of New Minya. It's so fascinating how we transition here, from macro-level philosophy down to the literal micro-level realities of city streets. We're about to see exactly how a massive concept like preserving religion is measured by looking at something as mundane as street sweeping and traffic management. To ground these abstract concepts, the author explains that preserving religion directly translates into actionable community standards. In an environmental context, this literally means keeping the environment clean and keeping the roads clear of obstructions. It's all about respecting the shared public sphere, which is a core tenet of the religious and cultural community. It's pretty wild how a lofty goal becomes a very practical, everyday directive for the sanitation department.
So how did New Minya actually do on this front? Well, looking at the city, the analysis finds a real success story here. The city successfully implements this objective through a centralized administrative system that actively wards off harm. They don't just sit back and hope people keep things clean, they have structured management backed by financial penalties to deter violations. They are actively applying that core principle of warding off the harm of pollution and squalor.
Furthermore, the city authorities actively prevent encroachments on public roads. By removing physical obstructions from public spaces, New Minya successfully applies the principle of protecting the shared community environment. Traffic can flow, the public appearance is maintained, and the harm of cluttered, unusable spaces warded off. So on the metric of preserving religion and community through cleanliness and order, the city gets really high marks. But the evaluation doesn't stop there. When we shift our analytical lens to the second objective, preserving life, the criteria obviously changes. To preserve life in an urban environment, we have to evaluate how well the city's design protects its residents from health harms, severe environmental conditions, and climatic dangers. Ultimately, a city has to be a shelter first and foremost.
And it's here that the academic analysis points out a pretty critical finding. The source text notes the General Authority for Urban Planning did not account for the harsh continental desert climate and the high daily temperature fluctuations in the region. Basically, the original 1984 master plan completely missed the mark. The planners essentially copy-pasted a standard city grid without adapting it to the specific, harsh extremes of the Minya region.
The author's analysis reveals that New Minya's design failed that crucial Sharia objective of preserving life simply because it didn't adapt to its environment. The design ignored the continental desert conditions, it ignored the massive swings in temperature from day to night, and it failed to orient streets and buildings to protect residents from severe hot winds. By failing to ward off the harms of the local climate, the city unfortunately brings discomfort and potential health hazards to its people, which directly violates that very first rule we talked about earlier.
This brings us to a really powerful realization about how we build the places we live. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this thought. How can future urban planning ensure that modern designs actually serve and protect the people living within them? Dr. Al-Muslimi's analysis of New Minya shows us that true modernization isn't just about throwing up new buildings. It's about deeply integrating a region's environmental reality with its foundational cultural principles. It's a great reminder that sometimes the best way to move forward is to look back at the enduring wisdom of the past. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I hope this changes how you look at the streets of your own city.